Hey guys, this is Scott from Throughout the World Podcast. Welcome to another edition of ReWatching Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. Today I'm going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 21, Ragtag. For those of you new to the series, I'm just going to be giving you the plot summary for this episode to begin with, and I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on this episode as well as some foreshadowing and Easter egg elements I noticed in it. So let's just dive right in with that plot summary to begin with, which says, in flashbacks, a teenage Ward is seen in juvenile detention where he first meets Garrett and accepts his offer to join his organization. That's Garrett's organization. Over the years, Garrett trains Ward and eventually tells him about Hydra. In the present, Coulson and May infiltrate Cybertech, who they realize is connected to Centipede and Hydra, and learn that Garrett was the first Deathlock. His implants are failing, and he needs the guest house drug to survive. The guest house drug being the one that saved Coulson and Skye. So the team travels to Havana, Cuba, finding the recently abandoned Hydra base, and Fitz and Simmons find the captured bus. The latter are caught by Ward and taken aboard the bus. That's Fitz and Simmons are captured by Ward, taken aboard the bus, which departs. Fitz disables Garrett's implants with an EMP, and the dying Garrett orders Ward to kill them. So after the two agents lock themselves in the bus's infirmary, Ward ejects it into the ocean. Raina injects Garrett with her synthesized house gas drug. Initially it seems to cause an extremist reaction, but Garrett recovers. Quinn attempts to sell Deathlock soldiers to the military and invites them to tour the Cybertech facility. So that's the plot summary for this episode, guys. It took me a little bit to get through that, but we did get to the end, and that's what happened. A bunch happened. We're getting some more resolutions as we're getting to this is the second last episode of this first season. The team finally makes all the connections between Centipede and Hydra and Cybertech and Garrett and Ward and all of it. They put all the pieces together in this one, and now they're trying to go and stop the problem. And they do a pretty good job. I like that the team they switched up and have Coulson and May have to be the one to pretend to be the brains of the operation, to sneak into Cybertech. So I like that element. I thought it was cool that they ended up splitting up when they went there, like when they went to Havana, which was just made sense. And at the same time, it was kind of just like, well, why couldn't one of you people who can shoot people go with the two that are pretty defenseless? But at the same time, you need three people that can shoot through people to get to the base. So it does make sense. It's just, poor Fitz and Simmons, they get thrown in the ocean, which is one thing I had forgotten about happening when I was first starting rewatching this season. I kind of just didn't blank it out. I just didn't think of it, because so many other things happens to these two throughout the other 4 or 5 seasons that, yes, I forgot that little thing, but now rewatching it, and today it's kind of an emotional scene, because you see Fitz trying to appeal to Ward, being like, we've had laughs, Ward, I know there's a good side in you, I know you don't want to do this, I know you care about him, and you're getting the flashbacks of Ward to seeing his dog that he was supposed to shoot that he didn't, and then you see a little rifle scope on the dog, and you're like, oh yeah, Garrett took care of that. So I like that you get that little element. You see that Ward is really struggling with having to kill these two people who he did kind of consider friends. As much as they weren't supposed to be, he wasn't supposed to have any connections. It's kind of hard to deny that he did have some little ones. Him and Ward at some points I always felt that they were kind of that brotherly, like Ward being the older brother, Fitz being kind of the younger one, looking up to him, trying to get some advice. And I really feel like that's what really made it the hardest for Fitz himself to finally believe that that Ward was bad. It took Ward throwing him out of a freaking airplane into the ocean for him to finally be like, oh yeah, Ward, there's no redeeming things in Ward whatsoever. But at the same time, I think that we also got to see an element of our side of Ward that Fitz doesn't quite get to see with that struggle. But at the same time, Ward, you still threw them in the ocean, which just can't be forgiven. Like, come on. Well, at least you didn't shoot them in the head too. That's the other argument. I'm torn about that. Let's move on to some other thing that I have written down. I do like that we got all the flashbacks throughout this episode, especially like that we see how Garrett and Ward met, and how Garrett treated Ward at first and kind of helped him develop. And I always loved that Garrett's whole motivation for all of this is that he's a Deathlock. He's the first Deathlock, and he's got the shittiest parts then, because you get the first prototype of anything, it's never. Have you seen the iPhone 1, people? Like, it's nothing compared to these new iPhones. So he's rocking that iPhone 1 technology, that iOS 00, and it's not lasting very long. So I like the fact that he spent 15, 20 years just trying to find these different solutions in order to help himself out, which I get. We all kind of understand that. We all want to live a little longer. We all do our best for the most part. And so, I mean, I respect that a little bit. He does go a little crazy about the way he does it, you know, starts a whole super soldier serum or takes over the centipede thing, and so he does go a little extreme with it, but at the same time, I kind of understand his motivations to it. That being said, once he gets the guest house drug, he goes a little freaking crazy, but that's more next episode, which I can't wait to get to, which will be the next one. What else do I have written down? So we got, I love that Trip's dad. I always love that about the Trip's granddad was a Howling Commando. I love that connection to the MCU and to the comics, and the fact that this episode Trip had to bring out some of his granddad's gadgets, spy gadgets and gear to help the team out because they've got no equipment because S.h.i.e.L.D's pretty much donezo at the moment. So I really like that they had to kind of, put some, a few things together, like it's set, like the title of the thing, it's Ragtag. They're a Ragtag team. They don't have the resources that they've had all the way up to this point. They don't even have their ship anymore. They still do have a pretty cool ship. They still have Garrett's Quinjet that they're flying around in, but that's not the bus. That's not the bus. It doesn't have sleeping quarters. They need their bunks. Anyways, what else do I have written down? Raina asks about S.h.i.e.L.D., says they're connected some way, which I always like that little bit of foreshadowing, getting in that we're like, what's that connection she's talking about? And then she tells Ward about the story about these two monsters that took out an entire village in China, and that those monsters were potentially S.h.i.e.L.D.'s parents, which for those of us who have seen ahead, we know in hindsight that yes, they are, and they're both definitely a little but I like that little story is kind of like told beforehand, before we get any of this information. We're getting all these little bits of information about her parents and what happened with them, and we don't get like the full solution till like the next season, but I like that we're starting the season after that, but we're starting to get the pieces put together, little things, these little Easter eggs, or little breadcrumbs they leave for us to pick up and collect as we move our way through the series. So I really like that element. Yep, Garrett was the first Deathlock. I said that. He only's got a few months to live is one thing they mentioned in the show, which I really think's an interesting element to think about. Oh, maybe that has a little something to do with why he sped this thing up a little bit. He was a little impatient about, that's why he shot S.h.i.e.L.D., because he was like, I don't have time to wait for you guys to get to this on your own. We got to speed this up a little bit. Somebody shoots somebody. Kind of makes sense if he's running on his hourglass is running a little quicker than some other people's, so I get why he's in a little bit of a hurry and why he made some slightly rash decisions and crazy decisions. But he's a crazy person. He is the bad guy. I don't like to call him crazy though. He's just the bad guy. I don't like to speak to his mental state, but he's a little Anyways, guys, what else do I have written down? Fitz almost kills Garrett with the EMP. I already mentioned that in the episode summary, but I like that element happened because we get to see that Fitz definitely has a little bit of a dark side. Like, he's willing to kill Garrett from after all this has happened. He's trying to do it to even save Ward at that point too, not just save himself. He's like, Ward, I can save him, but I just really like that we get to see that dark element that we know comes out a lot later in the show. So I like that little bit of a dark side we get from him, and the fact that he's almost had zero hesitation in doing it. He was just like, he made a joke about it. He made a one-liner. That's when you know you're a badass. When you make a one-liner while you almost kill somebody. That's when you're a true action star. Way to go, Fitz. But what else do I have written? Fitz attempts to appeal to Ward's good side, but then gets dropped out of the plane. Yeah, so that's just, like I already talked about that. I like that there is that little bit of, I like that Fitz has that hope. I love that Fitz was just like, I need to see it for myself, and even to the very, very, very end, he was still trying to convince Ward unsuccessfully, but I just like that Fitz has that hope in him. He doesn't want to believe that this guy who he had spent so much time with, who he'd bonded with, who'd been kind of gotten some advice about Simmons from, like, those two had bonded, and I like how much they kind of angsted out with him and make it such a a thing, to be honest. I can't really put the word on it. But what else do I have written down? Just Raina gives Garrett the guest house drug, but we get to see a little bit more with what happens with that in the next episode. And then we end off the episode with the team being cornered by Hydra, Centipede soldiers, and one of them having the Asgardian staff, which I can't remember how they get out of that, which is why I'm excited to get to that next episode. But that's the last of my notes, which brings me to the end of the video, guys. Be sure to let me know in the comments below if there's anything I missed or anything in particular you loved about this episode or didn't like about this episode. Always like checking out your guys' comments and thoughts on the different episodes. Be sure to let me know in the comments below about that. And thanks again for joining me today, guys, and have a good one.